of the Pick and Dons podcast. I'm your host, per usual, here with Zoo, and P-Bush is on a little bit of a hiatus. So how you doing, Zoo?
Oh man, I'm doing pretty good. I had some crazy news, crazy NBA news that happened recently. So I've been diving a little more back into the NBA universe, but there's been a lot of tanking. In these, there's been some really lopsided games, like this tanking issue. People are on absolute overdrive right now. So there's some really big big spread losses right now going on. So games are kind of like whatever right now. I think everybody's ready for the playoffs right now, especially now post March Madness. Not gonna lie, March Madness. That ending was not what I expected. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah,
that's all I got. There's one particular game that I was pretty excited for, and I watched it, and I could not believe what I was seeing. I was questioning everything I thought in this tournament in one matchup, and I was after that I was kind of just like, man, I don't know anything right after that game, but it was a pretty competitive championship game. But that Final Four had a game where I was like, what? I flabbergasted of how one of those games went.
Yeah, man, it's Final Four had the chalk, but the game I think I know you're talking about, which we're about to get into, was a little peculiar, and I was just kind of looking at that game like, well, I mean, that's just, I guess, how the Final Four is going to happen, and we're going to get our championship game. But to your point with the NBA, it is a lot of lopsided scores. It's a lot of different types of lineups that are being put out there. We were just talking about Rob Dillingham going berserk, as some would say, against the Washington Wizards, which a lot of people do. But just, it's kind of hard to judge a lot of these young guys. We just don't know if they're going to be really that good because of just how the lineups are at the end of the season. So we just are kind of meshing through and slushing through this whole end of the NBA season, and finally we get to the playoffs, and we'll get, I think, a pretty intense, at least when we get to round two. I think it's going to be some really intense matchups, and like I said, it could be anybody's game, especially too that I've been reading reports of like Cade maybe possibly coming back, which is just still you're a little wary because when you're dealing with the lungs and stuff, we don't know what his conditioning is going to be. But if that does happen, that makes the East even more interesting. But switching gears back to the NCAA, like I said, we left off. I think we was getting ready to watch the Elite Eight games, and then now we're through the championship game. Shout out to the Michigan Wolverines for winning. We kind of wanted to go back and just kind of speak about what we saw in the Final Four, and I think Zoo kind of led us there. So what was your thoughts on that?
Man, for me personally, I was hyped. Michigan, Arizona, one seed. Two teams both rolling in the tournament. Both they winning games by double-digit points every single game, and it looked like a great matchup because Arizona got bigs. Obviously, Michigan Wolverine is the biggest team in the tournament. So I was like, okay, maybe they have the guards, the center play. The guards obviously favorite. I think Arizona was supposed to favor Arizona, but obviously in that game, it was a domination. Like from the first jump ball, it was lights out. Because watching that game, I was like, what is going on? Like, obviously, Arizona was a team that they were known for their offense. Like, that's what they were known for. And they shot 37% from the field. They could barely hit their three-pointers. And obviously, Michigan couldn't miss a three like this pretty much this entire
at all.
Like, yeah,
they was bazooka.
Like, shooting 44% in a championship game on 27 attempts, you're making 12 of them. That is actually insane. And like they got hot, but they were hot the entire tournament. That's the thing. Yeah. They were over 40% the entire tournament. So in my head, I'm like, maybe a little regression on the 3-point. Like, I don't think they're gonna hit 40% again. Like 40%, that's Steph Curry's career 3-point percentage. The entire team's not gonna do that again. Nah, they just did that again on ridiculous volume and hit every three. Like Yaxel didn't miss a 3-point shot.
I was just
three for three, man. So like even Yaxel, like Yaxel was injured. Like they didn't even need him. He played only 14 minutes that game. I believe he got a little nicked up in the previous game. So you're looking at this Michigan Wolverine team where Yaxel's probably going to be a lottery pick this year. They didn't even really need him. And the rest of the roster kind of dominated. I got to hire Mara, the 7'3" kid, where he absolutely destroyed like Krivas. Because Krivas is also supposed to be one of those like NCAA like college centers where he's like really, really tall, really, really skilled, the rim protector, and he can post up a little more. But in that 1v1 matchup, like Mara freaking, like, let's see, 26 points on 11 for 16 shooting. That's just domination, like absolutely dominant. He played 30 minutes.
Hit his free throws.
Yep. Oh yeah, he's a great free throw shooter. 4-4 from the free throw line. The team shot 81% from the free throw line. So not only are they hitting 44% on the threes, they don't miss free throws. Like this is like the definition of being a professional kind of team right now, because this is they got ages of kids in college that are up there in age, so they're looking like very, very professional players right now in college basketball. But they absolutely dominated this game from the beginning of the game, like from the beginning to end.
Yeah, it was a lopsided score at the beginning.
Yeah. So pretty much this entire game was kind of wraps after in the first half. I was like, oh my god, they're down like 16 points. I'm like, can they make a run? They couldn't even make one run. They couldn't even like fight back. They got punched in the face in Arizona. They couldn't hit anything. Like their best player, I guess, Braden Berry's 4 for 6.
Yeah.
2 for 10 from 3. Like you shoot 20% from the 3-point line in the championship game, where he had his worst shooting game in the tournament at 25%. So you're pretty much looking at him, obviously their best player in that tournament. Kobe, 6 for 18, man. Like, and he's a big. Like he's a physical big, but obviously you're playing against a Wolverine team where everybody on that team's like 6'6" or taller outside of the point guard. So like obviously you can't rely on that physicality as much. You can't play football style with these guys because everybody on the roster is just built big and strong. And pretty much those guys kind of dominated based on their physicality. So pretty much from the beginning end, it was a complete domination. Obviously, I had Arizona win the championship. So after watching the first half, I was like, okay, it's over. I'm like, and after that, I'm like, yeah, Michigan's gonna win this all because they made Arizona look like a different class of team. When Arizona, if you look at it on paper, it's an extremely, extremely talented team where they had bigs and guards and a couple of NBA prospect talents, like 2 potential first rounders along with a second rounder. So they did have the talent. The team was a pretty complete team offensively, but obviously they couldn't hit their jump shot. They died by the 3-point shot. They even missed like a lot of their free throws. They were sub 70% from the free throw line too. So they couldn't really get much going. So that game, I would have to emphasize, I was very, very shocked because that was a 1-point spread. So Vegas expectation, this is kind of a pick-em top style game with Michigan. Yeah, with Michigan slightly favored, but it was like only a point. And for them to be beating them by 8, like obviously winning by 18, but in my mind, this was an insane blowout type game. It wasn't even close. Like it was even competitive, this game, where I thought I was like, this is like the pre-championship game. No, it wasn't. This was closer to a first round in the March Madness or a second round in the round of 32. It was closer to that than a championship game because it was a different class of team that I saw. I was just like, this Arizona team I believed in pretty much just broke my bracket, broke my heart watching that game. Cost me a couple $100 because somebody took Michigan to win it. I took Arizona. So it was one game to win the bracket. And after I watched the first half, I'm like, oh, it's so over.
Yeah, it's the sheer size, because Arizona's not a super small team, but it's just the sheer size of Michigan. It's just, it was really, and I think maybe the stadium, because it looks weird in the dome and the camera angle is a little different, but Michigan just looked like a NBA team, like how they're built. Like the only guy who looked on the roster that's like, he's probably like an overseas guy is Elliot Cadeau, but like he's shifty and quick enough to where he don't look lost on the floor. And two, like at the beginning of that game, when I saw Cadeau was like kind of getting off the dribble, I think past Bradley and getting like floaters, and I think he made maybe 1 or 2, missed a couple. I was like, oh, this is, because I was thinking what was going to be a little bit of an advantage with Arizona was like their guard's going to be able to slow down Cadeau and make him maybe a little off kilter and maybe make the bigs of Michigan do a little bit more work. But yeah, it just, Yaxel too, like when he came in to see hit those threes, it's like, like he's a decent shooter, but for me, it's like when you're just in that zone, and I think just him being in that moment, it's just like, okay, they're going to the championship game. Like you said, you said it all in terms of that game. I was just thinking to myself, like looking at the UConn Illinois game, once I saw UConn get to the Final Four, I thought to myself, like, there's probably a really good chance they win it. Like now, looking at how Michigan dominated the tournament, I think if push came to shove, like, and say they got Arizona, I think UConn maybe would have had a chance. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
But once a week, I saw Michigan go against Arizona and they just demolished them. I was like, okay, dude, this is Michigan's tournament to lose. Like they're winning the championship game. And UConn made it interesting at some point where, a couple guys like were getting decent shots. And like I said, they're really good at like never ever getting down like crazy double digits. Like they'll get down like 10, 11, 12, and then make like a 3 or an and 1. And it's like they keep keeping it within range. But it's just Michigan had the perfect recipe. And even with Cadeau, like the thing I did like about him too was like he was a fearless driver. And I think part of that was even though if he doesn't get his guy off the bounce and he's like matched up with him, it's like it's a chance he could either steal it or block it. He knows he has the backup of all those bigs behind him that's just gonna clean it up. So it's like really your idea is just get it to the rim, get it to the basket. If you got a clean shot and it goes in, cool. But like more than likely, if you miss, one of our big guys is going to get off the rim and either going to get a foul or get a putback. So it's like when you kind of have that as your, I'm not saying that's their entire offense, but I'm just saying that's a majority of it. Well, you're going to win a lot of games that way. And two, it's not just simply as, and like when I say big men, it's obviously people know I'm talking about power forward centers, but these are big men who can move around. And that's super important because that's what makes you Michigan in a more complete team. Is those big guys are setting screens, and when they're moving off the screen, they are moving quickly. They're not like lumbering, and it's like you're the point guard pounding the basketball trying to see if they can get into a post up. It's like they're moving quickly. You can get the ball to them, and then like you said, they're skilled down low too. So Michigan, once they got to the Final Four, they just kind of really dominated. And I'm gonna be honest, I think Michigan in my Final Four, but I didn't think it was gonna be as dominant as it was. And people are saying too, they're like, well, we're not going to really remember this Michigan team. That's going to be mainly because it's just no like superstar. Yeah. And because to be honest, Yaxel is like the guy that's the NBA guy, but I have a tough time even thinking what his comp is. I don't know what his comp is. He just is like a wing power forward. It's weird. Like, so for me, it's like that's maybe part of the reason why they're just not going to be remembered as like this all-time team. But and actually, like to me, I came more impressed when they played UConn at championship game with Braylon Mullins, just like with his movement. Like I think that's going to translate. Like sometimes shooting can come and go, but like just watching him off screens and running, and it just he pretty much was. I mean, he had full stamina for like the entire game. Now, like I said, I'm not saying he was like a game changer, but I just like his movement skills, and he's like 6'6", 6'7". So I think sometimes I think once the NBA becomes in the picture, your game can maybe expand because there's more spacing, and sometimes in college it's just a little too tight knit. But I was really disappointed in Arizona because I just thought the intensity once they started the game and just Michigan was just like getting whatever they want. I was like, okay, is Arizona here to play, or are they're just happy to be in the Final Four? Because that's what it felt like. It felt like they hadn't been there in so long. I think it was like 2002, 2003, whenever last time they've been, and it's just like, oh well, we got here. And I like to make a parallel. It's like it's kind of the same thing that happened with my Carolina Gamecocks on the women's side. It's like that was such an intense game against UConn. It's like, oh wait, we got to play the championship game like Sunday, and it's against UCLA, who has a bunch of seniors and who's thirsty to get their first championship. And it's like, oh, you feel like you're just happy to be in the championship game. I felt like with Arizona, they were just like, we got here to Final Four. Oh wait, Michigan's like got a bunch of dudes that are 7-1, 7-2. Like, oh, we got to play them. So that just kind of was unfortunate because. I really did think because if you look at Arizona's roster, you can almost kind of argue they had the most complete Final Four roster, like in terms of just guys and dudes. Like Michigan won it and they got dudes too, but like I don't know. I would love to have seen if like Arizona would have got a second chance with like more intensity. Maybe it's a different game. But salute to Michigan. I mean, they won it. I think who's the coach? I can't remember his name. I don't know why I was about to say Tommy Lloyd. That's Arizona, I think. I'm not sure the Michigan coach name, but shout out to him. Great guy in terms of recruiting, how he got his players there.
Dusty May.
Yeah, and also too, like Elliot Cadeau, if you remember, he was at UNC and was kind of like a, non-shooting guard who was just kind of people were kind of just pegging him as like a undersized shooting guard. Man, he gets to Michigan, gets to develop a little bit. Now, I'm not saying he's a shooter. I don't think he'll ever become a good shooter, but like he became a guy who can run the offense, and that's a testament to his coaching. Some guys just need a fresh start, and Cadeau was able to guide them to a championship. Did he get most outstanding player?
Yeah, he got most outstanding player, which is crazy.
Which is a testament,
Because going to this tournament, I thought the point guard was the weak point of the roster. Like they had the wings, they had the bigs. So that's why I like Michigan on paper. The analytics had them like on the second favorite team to win it all. but I kind of faded him because at the point guard position, I was like, I'm not sure
Yeah.
about this guy, but he was able to lead them, especially in the championship game where he scored a lot of points and obviously led the team over a UConn team where that team actually they put up a fight. Like first
Yeah, he
half,
did.
back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I was like, wow, is UConn is going to be able to pull it off again?
Yes.
Because I remember we were talking last week. It was like, I think UConn can make it to the championship game, but I don't think they can win it because, like, on paper, this roster is just not as good as the previous rosters. But that was a hell of a fight that they put up against Michigan Wolverines. And, like, obviously, the shooting wise, like, Michigan missed every three, man. Like they were two for 15 from the 3-point line. So, okay, they're shooting. Okay, now you got a chance. Now they're not hitting all the threes at a 40% clip. Problem is, UConn was hitting only 27% of the threes.
Yeah.
So they were legit. Be like, I think going into that game, they're like, I think Michigan's the better team, so we got to beat them with the three. Like that's the only way we could beat them because in the paint with these guys, Michigan. I think that was their strategy going into this game. But because like the two best shooters, Caravan and Mullins, they combined shot 23s. Two guys on their roster shot 23s. That's more threes than the entire team for Michigan. Like, and they only made 6 out of 20. So at 30% clip. So they definitely died from the 3-point line. But even with dying at the 3-point line, it was a 6-point game. Like it was within the balance with the last like 2 to 3 minutes of the game where it was back and forth. And obviously Michigan was able to get it done. But I got to give props to this UConn team because the guy that I'm just very, very impressed. Even though he hadn't had the best game like Taurus Reed, like I think he's a really, really like good player where obviously against a team against the Wolverines, obviously they got 7'3" dudes. Like, because usually when Reed's in college basketball, that's the strongest dude on the court most of the time because he's a 6'11" dude. Like even in the NBA now, if you 6'11", 240, 250, you're probably one of the 2 strongest guys on the court right now because everybody now is skinny on the finesse side, the 3-point shooting, the movement, like the big bruisers is not the style, not the archetype of player to go into the league right now, but he was still pretty effective in the game, and obviously he had 14 rebounds. That's what I'm most impressed with, like getting 14 rebounds. I guess a 7'3" like that. Like that Mara guy he looks even bigger than his actual height, man. Like that dude looks absolutely ginormous, especially in college basketball. But I got to shout out to Michigan for getting done. Cadeau questions my philosophy of the NBA point guard because I definitely don't think he's an NBA point guard.
Yeah, he was like highly ranked out of high school, but it's just he can't shoot. He can't shoot.
Yeah, he's like the efficiency is not there. He's like a smaller dude, and if you look at it statistic wise, like he's barely 10 points a game in college basketball. So like obviously he had a great game, and obviously he shot 5 for 11, got to the free throw line a couple, so putting pressure on UConn's defense. But man, UConn Huskies, they put up a good fight. They put up the best fight in the tournament by far because Michigan hasn't really been challenged. Like they just kind of been up like every game for the entire tournament. So this was like the first game where it was actually a challenge, especially after the first half where it was a 50-50 game, but then Michigan was able to have a mini lead, just pretty much like a 2-possession lead. They maintained it for the second half, but they needed some threes to go in. That's what UConn was relying on, but they obviously couldn't get the threes to fall.
And I think a lot of that too is always hit or miss because it's played in those domes. It's playing those massive arenas where it's just if you're a shooter, they always say, well, you're just going to figure out how to make shots. But I do think that affects a lot of teams. And that kind of brings me to the last point on this. It's like I just wish they would put it in like an arena. I know this is above my pay grade and it's their tickets and everybody wants to make as much money as they can. But I wish they could get it in get it in the biggest. I don't know. I mean, I know NBA is going on, but like any arena that's not currently being used as NBA size and just figure out how to, and then this is take the NBA out of it. I mean, they would never go a WNBA route because it's less capacity, but just something that's like a civic center or something where it's like, you know, certain college teams play there on like a tournament weekend, like put it in something like that where it resembles more of like what they play all year. Because honestly, I mean, it looks cool kind of on the court where you're looking at it from the vantage point of like, oh, it's like this big dome and it's like you can hear the crowd and it looks crazy. But it's like, to me, a lot of these games when they're playing in that Final Four, they're just the shooters that can shoot normally don't shoot the best. It looks a little awkward on certain things where they're like trying to get, angles, especially when they're shooting from the side. It just always feel like those shots never going. So it's like I just wish they would maybe just put it in the like an arena that's normal, and it just gives it more of a, because I feel like it would be even more intensely like felt through the screen if it was in like a normal arena. But again, I'm pretty sure they're not going to do that because there's just so much money to be made with, putting it into like how Syracuse plays every their home games, just put it in the Carrier Dome or whatever and just rock out. But I don't know. I just would like that it would be in something, or at least maybe like, you probably couldn't do it in the first Final Four games because then it's like if you switch from that to each arena. But I don't know. That's just personal preference. I just wish, because even just watching like the women's tournament, it's like when it was the Final Four and the championship game, like they had that. I think it was at the Phoenix Arena. Like it's packed. It looked lit. Like it just looked more like cozy. Because for me in basketball, I just like the fans on top of you look. Like I don't like the massive, like it's like an NFL arena, like or an NFL stadium. I don't know. It's like I like it where it's like there's like you went to Indiana, like how it looks like that, where it's just like it looks big, but it's like it's closed in. It's just like it feels like a basketball arena. Like 15, 20K max. Like we don't need 100,000 people at the stadium. Like I don't know. That's just I've never been a fan of that. But that's a model that is probably not going to get approved. So we'll see. But shout out to Michigan, like you said. We'll see. I mean, the portal's already open, so they might have a lot of guys lining up to, come in and be part of the big blue. Yeah, no, it's insane. They're
portal team.
They're already throwing out numbers for a lot of teams. So we're gonna see how they do and progress going into next year. So basically, ending the podcast, we kind of want to get into more about like what are the lessons we learned throughout the entire March Madness, and Zua, what are some things that was on your mind?
My favorite thing is always trying to predict the champion, right? So that's always one thing. I'm trying to tune up every single year. What did I learn? And every single year, I've always had this motto of they got to have an NBA point guard. They got to have an NBA point guard. Like that, I still truly believe guard play is important.
Yeah.
But you go win with a guard where, okay, he might not be an NBA point guard, but he's a solid guard. You know what I mean? He's like a lead traditional point guard who could handle the ball and lead an offense and stuff. And they don't have to be like a bona fide guy to make the league. Because like I'm looking at this Michigan team where I was looking through the like he's clearly not an NBA guard. Like he's just not. No. Like he's not even close to be honest. Like and this team was kind of built from the bigs. Actually he's like a I don't know, at the next level, is he a small forward or a power forward? But
yeah, that's what he's in. He's like a tweener.
He's a tweener, but he's definitely not like a two guard. He ain't like a combo guard. No. So he's definitely on the forward side. So if you look at this guy on paper, they didn't really have the best guards on that roster right now. And they're kind of built inside out, where I saw a lot in this tournament where the physicality of the bigs is really, really important. We're dominating the glass and imposing your will on offensive rebounds and just maintaining a presence in the middle where you could just like lock that paint down and pretty much force teams to be, okay, you got to beat us by shooting the basketball. If you don't hit your threes, you're not going to beat these teams right now. So I was looking through my thought process of these teams right now, because I think I already told you one of my favorite predictors, the AP polls, right? The AP polls, week 6 AP polls. And I was looking at the teams. I was looking at the teams that did well in their conference tournament. So they made it at least to the semifinals. And look at these teams that was down to. I was down to Arizona, Michigan, Duke, Iowa State, UConn, Purdue, Houston, and the Zags. Pretty much the Zags had no NBA players. So that is still one of my favorite predictors. I got to still have it. The NBA talent thing, that is by far, like regardless of positional value, the NBA value guys, like there are teams like, because they had 0 guys. So I'm like, cross off, like you need to have multiple. So if you don't even have one potential, like you have no chance at all. So after that, I ruled out Gonzaga, Purdue, Iowa State. So boom, those teams are out of it. So I was down to, I guess, pretty close to the Final Four right now. I was down to Arizona, Michigan, Duke, and UConn. Those 4 teams. And obviously you saw that Duke and UConn game. That was it was a miracle of UConn making it. So, like, obviously, there are only 2 seeds, and obviously the 3 other teams, those are 1 seeds. So those are obvious teams where Obviously, this thing obviously excluded Florida because Florida in the beginning they didn't even do that well. So right now I'm looking at this trend. It's still a pretty powerful trend because if you just look at just multiple NBA players and conference tournament performance along with multiple NBA players, man, you got 4 teams where if you had those teams go far, especially if a contrarian play with like a UConn making it farther than everybody else, you did quite well in your brackets, right? Like UConn was a team that they were a 2 seed. So they weren't like a 5 seed, right? Like a 2 seed making it to the championship. That's not too far fetched either. Like that's not too crazy of a contrarian play, but I don't think not many people respected UConn as much as obviously the other number 1 seeds with like a Duke, which they were obviously the heavy favorite, but then along with Arizona and Michigan. But for me personally, just looking at this, it's the NBA guard. I'm like, wow, it didn't matter as much as this tournament, but he did ball out in the championship game. So in that one game, he played extremely well. So that positional value, it still does matter having a primary decision maker. And I believe he only had 1 turnover. So having a guy still leading your offense, that's still very important. But at the heights of an NBA level, maybe you just need a good college lead guard with, especially if you're surrounded by a bunch of giants. So I think that's one thing I definitely learned this year where Michigan, by all the trends, everything was good. The only thing I had lead guard, and I was like, yeah, I don't know about this guy. And to be honest, I still don't know about this guy. But I guess it doesn't really matter when you fit all the other traditional metrics of they have an amazing roster around this guy. And pretty much they didn't make that many like boneheaded plays like turnovers and shooting yourself in the foot. So the poor decisions, I didn't see any of those things that he made. So you just need a low turnover guy leading the offense in this type of situation where you got a team that's this talented and this big and physical.
Yeah, and I think partly we'll see it's still a small sample size because we're kind of still fresh on like the transfer portal being a thing and a factor every year. But I think partly of why maybe the NBA guard may fade, I still think that's going to be uber important because if you have an NBA guard, that's a legit like probably like lottery round or like middle first round, like that's still going to matter for most teams. And you're going to probably at least at the minimum get to a Sweet 16 or Elite 8. Because even still, like when we was looking at now, Darren Peterson aside because he had a lot of weird injuries. Like I think if DeBensta was like the 6'5" guard, like BYU maybe probably would have got past the first round.
And they lost one of their best players. I think it was their point guard. He was averaging like 18 points a game, and obviously BYU fell off after that. Yeah,
and he kind of had some like, and he's weird on the NBA guard stuff too because a lot of people were kind of giving him a Chris Paul comp, but I think as much as Chris Paul just retired this year, like I think people forget his younger years where like I know he was 6 foot, but he was uber athletic. He just wasn't above the rim, but like just dribbling and moving out and getting it out. He was a beast at that point. And it's like I think anytime there's a guy who's 6 foot and he's like tough and hard nosed, they just compare him to Chris Paul. But it's like you got to go back and watch the tape of how like good he was athletically. But like I think DeBonsta maybe would have been a bigger impact for the tournament. We're speaking not NBA, but just tournament. He might have would have been able to lift BYU if he was a guard. But I do think because with the transfer portal and a lot of these guys that are getting these weird, 6th, 7th, and 8th years, the tournament is also kind of telling me that like older teams are just super important. And more than likely with these guards, like if they're 4th, 5th, maybe even 6-year guards, more than likely they're not NBA guys if they're there for 5 to 6 years. But they're going to be really good in the tournament because it's just you're just talking age and math. Like if you're going against a couple of teams that are, I'm not saying like a Duke would be Duke is one and done, and Kentucky is, North Carolina somewhat, and maybe Arkansas now. But like teams like that, and they're in like an Elite 8 matchup or a Final Four, more than likely you need to put your money on the guy who's been there 5-6 years because it's just a grown 24-year-old that's going to come in and know how to, like I said, low turnover, going to do what he needs to do. Like I said, his ceiling's probably going to be overseas, but he's got a bunch of other guys with elite roster construction like Michigan did. And it's just like those other subparts are so good that to me, you really just need like Elliot Cadeau, like to your point, he had 1 turnover. I'm pretty sure the coach was telling him like, look, if the shot's there, the shot's there. But I want you attacking the rim. I want you to figure out how to get the ball on the glass. The big guys are going to clean it up and take care of the ball. You don't need to be this dynamic guy who's got to, in the fourth quarter, give us a flurry of like 8 to 9 points where you impacted the game. And like I said, he was a super high recruit coming out, but it's like a lot of those guys highly recruited. And it's like, if you just look at him, and part of the reason why he left North Carolina, like North Carolina fans kind of got, because I want to say he was kind of in the same role or impact of like Seth Trimble, who's like a 6'3" wing forward.
Oh, yeah.
And it's kind of like, I think he was like in that kind of space because he wasn't really a point guard. And I don't know what really their system they were running, because I know UNC likes to get up and down, which he's good at doing. But I think he got coached really well this year, and his team was just excellent. So the only thing that I just learned this year with how exciting this tournament was is that I really don't want, and these are rumors, but I think it might be real, I don't want the tournament to expand. Like, I don't want more games.
No.
I'm really good with those. And to be honest, if we could get rid of the first four, I'm kind of good, because like I never watched the first four. I don't ever watch it. No. Like, I just look to see like who won, and it's okay. Now I got to do the bracket. Like, I just think it's a waste of time, and I think it's just, I know everything's centered around money, but it's like at some point this year, if you just are new to college basketball and it's like, oh, I'm going to watch March Madness. Like, this is probably one of the better years in I don't know how long, in terms of just buzzer beaters, big time shots, close games. Like, the tournament is perfect. It's like foolproof. So it's like, to me, I don't want to get to what I'm learning is I love it in this format, keep it in this format. I can tolerate those first four, but like, I don't want more games. I just don't, because I don't want to get to a point where there's like first four games or five first four games.
Oh my God.
Like, it's just going to water it down. Yeah. And two, it might get to a point where you're going to get certain matchups, and maybe they're banking on like, oh, there's a team that beats another team and it can maybe get more potential 116 upsets. Nobody wants to see that, because like I said, everybody knows this theory. If you really watch March Madness, Cinderellas are cool until the Sweet 16. Nobody wants to see the Cinderella past Sweet 16. We don't want to see you in the Final Four ever. But like, we're cool if you got a first round upset, second round upset, maybe Sweet 16. But like, once you get the Elite Eight, Sweet 16, we don't want to see you no more. We kind of, what has been proven over time is chalk. Like, that's what we see. Because even though Michigan was so dominant, the games weren't close. Normally, when it's chalk in terms of like ones or twos, it's normally really good games. So it's like, I'm a proponent of just leaving it the same. And my other theory would just, we might start seeing a little bit more of just, because I honestly don't know. It's so weird in college right now. Like, we're out of really the COVID. It's 2026. So like 2025, like most athletes get like 5 years. So we're kind of on the tail end of like the COVID kids of like, okay, we just had COVID and I'm getting extra grants of eligibility. But now, because they got this weird stuff where you can play in the G League and doing stuff, and everybody's getting, because like you said, we've talked about this a bunch of times, but it's just, to put it in layman's terms, is they're doing, and NCAA is doing whatever they can to not make them employees. And it's just this, what's basically is like, you got a feather, you got full of feathers, you just, they're plucking one by one, and eventually it's going to be a naked whatever after the feathers are off. Like, you're going to have to eventually do it. So it's so out of whack with these guys coming back. So if that continues to be a thing, and you can just push a guy who was in a G League for 2 years and now he's 25 coming back on campus, it's going to be more of this, I think, where you're not going to say he's a point guard or a lead guard. I'm taking him over the hot shot freshman, because it's just grown man, and he's seen like he's going to be able to keep up. So I think that might be a little bit altered. That might be altered, because even Darius Acuff, as much as we liked him, like, he can only take Arkansas as much as he could until he ran into Arizona with older guards. So it's just like, I don't know. Who knows? So those are my two things. It's just, I think I love March Madness. I love this time of year, and I just kind of want to keep it that way. And I kind of want to keep it where it's got a little bit of just familiarity in terms of how we watch it. Because I think this year was one of the better years. I think this is one of the better years for sure.
That UConn ending, that is one of the greatest moments in college basketball history, with that moment and buzzer beater and being down and hitting a three to beat Duke on a Duke turnover
of all teams.
Yeah, exactly. And them scrambling, the coach's reaction, Dan Hurley going crazy. Like, that was one of the greatest moments in college basketball history. And there are a lot of clutch moments in this year's tournament. And as you mentioned, like, the number is just perfect. Like, round of 64, the way they do the schedule, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the way you do the games is great for Survivor Pool, your March Madness, week one, like round one, round two, and then next week, boom, all the way to the Sweet 16, and then Elite Eight and on forward. So the scheduling of it is super. I like the schedule of how they do their games from Thursdays to Sundays, as far as that played out. And additional games are just not necessary, especially like with the transfer portal and everything. Obviously, I think there's gonna be more. I would stack like number one seeds. I think less are gonna lose going forward, because I think teams are just going to get all the good, like get the better players, and it's harder for these smaller schools to make it farther, and having more of those teams in there. I don't need to see that, man. I appreciate a good Loyola Chicago story. I guess this year's closest
St. Peter's.
Yeah, that was still less than that while on the run they went on. But I do appreciate one of those good. I think closest thing to that this year's probably, I would say Iowa, right? I would say Iowa is probably the closest to like a true Cinderella story. But those are cute stories. But once the final games, the championship games, I want to see the Blue Blood franchise and see how they play out. And Michigan proved that. Yeah, because if we forget Michigan basketball obviously had a couple of rough years recently. But historic in the last 10 years, I believe they had a Trey Burke team that was led to a championship, right? Like that was a pretty good pro, a really, really good team. So Michigan getting another championship, and I guess I call it in the 2000 era, like it's pretty impressive what they pulled off this year, because there was no doubt. There's no like what ifs of what team could have beaten them. There were no what ifs. They kind of made a statement that like, yeah, we're the best team this year.
And as we go and wind down this podcast, it's just another feather in the cap of the Big Ten. Ever since it's kind of shifted to like, hey, I know they say NIL, but it's basically pay for play. Once that's become a real thing for all schools, it just kind of looks like the Big Ten is just, they're doing it better. They have more money, they have guys, they have better brands, I guess, to sell. And it's just going to be interesting to see over, I know it's like I always said a couple minutes ago, like it's still relatively new with like NIL and transfer portal and all that stuff. But it's like, if you push it out, like 2030, I will be interested to see like the SEC and maybe ACC to a lesser degree response and like how they're going to be able to compete. Because it just looks like a lot of these teams, like even Michigan, just them as a standalone university, like them having this basketball championship and the football championship not too long ago. Like, those are the two sports most schools care about. So it's like, they kind of, Florida hasn't really done the football part, but like even them getting that championship last year in basketball, it's just like, that's super impressive. And we're going to see how that all shakes out. So I'm going to be interested again, like, full disclosure, it's not like I'm watching every college basketball game before the tournament, but I watch enough to where it's like I see what these teams are doing. And depending on how I guess whoever these judges are that are ruling on eligibility, it could be entirely different where they cut it off and it's like, look, you only get 5 years. If not, you're out. Or they could be like, look, you've been in the G League for 4 years. You're not playing. Like, come on down to UNC or whoever. So we'll see. But it does make it interesting. I will say that. So March Madness, like I said, one of the better times of the year. We kind of hinted to it earlier. NBA playoffs are right around the corner. So you guys got to make sure you're locked into that. Make sure you're tuning into the podcast page, Tyson Talks, to just see all the updated content with NBA. And, we're going through the first, second, third rounds and just putting up content for that. Quantro knows, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Make sure if you get on there, like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up so we can get to the algorithms. And for me, Zoo, and Peebush, who's on, I guess, a little mini vacation, we're out. There we go. Oh, man.